You can't dwell on getting burned by Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. You have to learn from it and move on.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Ian McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I have been covering this team and the NHL for various outlets for nearly 20 years. On today's podcast, we are going to look at the stats, the storylines, and the signals from last night's loss to the Edmonton Oilers, and we will also look ahead to Saturday's game against the Vancouver Canucks. The Bruins are right now in the midst of a 4-game set against Canadian teams, but all at home in Boston. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And again, last night, the Bruins losing to the Edmonton Oilers by a score of 3-1. And it was a game in which head coach Marco Sturm actually thought they played pretty well 5-on-5. It was Boston, their propensity to take too many penalties and give the Oilers too many opportunities on the power play, which you can't do against the #1 unit in the NHL. Although, to their credit, Boston did hold them to only 1 for 4 on the power play. And they played pretty well against a very formidable power play unit. But, and even while the Bruins did score a power play goal of their own, the dagger in this one was a shorthanded goal given up by the Bruins, which was scored by Connor McDavid on a breakaway. Just an absolutely beautiful move that he put on Jeremy Swayman to deke him out and finish the job effectively. This was the third goal of the game. The winner was from Quinn Hudson in the second period. The Bruins had an opportunity on that power play to tie things up. Instead, it went the other way. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with a beautiful feed to McDavid. And this came after McDavid had set up Nugent-Hopkins for a first period power play goal. So those two really connecting last night. Marco Sturm, though, afterwards said he likes playing teams like that because they make you better. One mistake, it will make us better. Trust me. And that's a good thing, he said. For him, it's a great teaching game. Really good. Cost us maybe 2 points, but overall, he believes these kind of games will help. And that's the right attitude to have after a loss to the Edmonton Oilers. These are the 2-time defending Western Conference champions. They have 2 of the very best players in the world in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. It sucks because the Bruins had their opportunities. This game was there for the taking, especially when you have, unfortunately for the Oilers, Tristan Jarry, who they just acquired from the Pittsburgh Penguins, leaving the game after stretching out for a save on a Morgan Geekie attempt that went way wide anyways. He was injured. Calvin Pickard came in pretty cold, but he was still able to lock things down and did not allow a goal in his time in relief, despite the Bruins putting some pretty good shots on him and getting some opportunities. He went 12 for 12, whereas Jarry had allowed 1 goal on 13 shots. 5-on-5, though, it was pretty even, as we'll look at later on in the stats section. The difference was that shorthanded goal plus that one 5-on-5 goal that the Oilers did score. Marco Sturm afterwards said he was actually really happy with their 5-on-5 game. They made a mistake here and there, cost us a goal. But other than that, he thought they were pretty good. You can't give up one. You can't give up one on the power play either. That's a hard one. Overall, it was a little bit frustrating because he thought the guys were into the game and the guys were sharp. The Bruins goal came from Pavel Zacha, who was the recipient of a beautiful pass from Elias Lindholm. He roofed it backhand on Tristan Jarry for a power play goal that tied it at 16:27 of the first period. He thought their power play, they broke into the zone a couple times really well, getting better every game, but it didn't help them to win last night. They did have a couple other opportunities that they weren't able to capitalize on. The referee, I'm not a huge referee complainer, but there were some really tough calls last night. A couple extra ones that put the Bruins behind, a couple that weren't called, especially late in the game on David Pastrnak. He was clearly very frustrated. He got a misconduct near the end of the game and was effectively tossed off. But the positive here was Pavel Zacha, now on a 2-game point streak, 24 points through 34 games. And right now, there's some real chemistry with Casey Mittelstadt and Marat Khusnutdinov. Although Khusnutdinov's penalty in the offensive zone was a real crusher for the Bruins. Zacha said Khusnutdinov is very fast. He's getting better every day, getting comfortable making plays. And Zacha likes playing with him. He sees the game really well. He wins puck battles, which for his size is really impressive, how many puck battles he wins, and looks for guys right after. It was Quinn Hudson, though, who got the game winner. 23-year-old forward who played 3 years at BU, made it 2-1 at 14:38 of the second period. And then McDavid widened the gap with that breakaway shorthanded goal. Swayman thought this game could have gone either way. You put a good 5-on-5 game together, it's something to build off moving forward. He made 22 saves, but the Bruins did manage to keep Edmonton under 30 shots. And Swayman said, if you do that consistently, you're going to win a lot of games. Now, the Bruins do have 3 games remaining in their homestand. And as Sturm said, we'll look to learn from this loss to the Oilers and put it into practice for the games coming up against Vancouver, Ottawa, and Montreal, which will be huge games for the Bruins as they look to bounce back and pick up some huge points. Last night, if they had won, they could have jumped to the top of the Atlantic Division. It was a missed opportunity, to be sure. The shots were even in this one, 25-25. The Bruins had a better power play success last night. They went 1 for 3, keeping Edmonton to 1 for 4. But the difference was that Connor McDavid shorthanded goal, that was a huge backbreaker for the Bruins, because if they had scored on that power play opportunity, they would have tied it. Instead, the Oilers got that goal, and the Bruins were not able to recover or manufacture anything more on Calvin Pickard, which is really unfortunate. Coming up, we're going to discuss more of the stats and the significance of this game. But the big storyline for me was, again, you learn from this game, you move on, you don't dwell on it. And the fact that they were able to hang pretty well with the Edmonton Oilers, with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, is a positive and something to learn from. Can't get too high, can't get too low. And speaking of getting too low, the next opportunity to win will be against a lowly Vancouver Canucks team, and the Bruins will need to take advantage of that. We'll preview that one later after we look at the stats and the significance from last night's loss to the Edmonton Oilers. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. And that's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Just pull up the app. The layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views, Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print, and prices include fees up front, which I love. No surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off with Game Time. Thank you so much again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You're already living your team every day. Now it's time to take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Boston Bruins with no interruptions, members-only Discord access where we can continue the conversation, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonbruins.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, let's take a look at some of the key stats from last night's loss to the Edmonton Oilers. And at 5-on-5, the Bruins were right there as the more dominant team. The Bruins had 56% of the shot attempts at 5-on-5. They had 54.5% of the total shots at 5-on-5, 18 for the Bruins, 15 for the Oilers. The scoring chances were in favor of the Bruins as well, 55%. The Oilers, though, did have more high danger chances at 5-on-5, 7 versus 6, and the expected goals tilted in their favor as well. Where it shifted was the Oilers having more power play opportunities, 4 for them compared to 3 for the Bruins. And of course, they had that shorthanded goal, which was the real backbreaker for the Bruins. But overall, the Bruins were right there in terms of the possession numbers. In all situations, the Bruins had 55% of the shot attempts. They had, the shots were 25-25. The Bruins had more scoring chances, 27-25. However, the Oilers had more high danger chances, and they made good on those. The Ryan Nugent-Hopkins opportunity right in front of the net, which Sean Kuraly kind of didn't have the best coverage. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins isn't a power forward. He isn't the most intimidating guy in front of the net. Kuraly kind of lost that coverage, and Nugent-Hopkins made them pay for it. And then you had the Quinn Hudson goal in tight and the McDavid breakaway. So the expected goals based on all of that added up, the scoring chances, shots, high danger chances, were in fact 3-2 in favor of the Oilers. So add it all up, and it kind of shook out how it was meant to last night. But again, it was a learning opportunity for the Bruins. You have to be aware of who's in front of the net on the penalty kill. You can't allow Connor McDavid to get loose like that on a shorthanded opportunity. And a guy like Quinn Hudson, you can't allow him to score his first goal of his career either on that kind of opportunity. So overall, the Bruins didn't play necessarily poorly, but the Oilers just took advantage of their opportunities, and they had more of those high danger chances. The Bruins, when Calvin Pickard came into the game, they had a real opportunity to take advantage of a guy who had been sitting on the bench for almost half the game. They didn't get enough shots on goal. They had some attempts. They were firing from all around, but they didn't have those high quality chances that you need in order to rattle a guy who's just come into the net. He played 23 minutes, 24 minutes around, and the Bruins made it fairly easy on him, unfortunately, later on in this one. The Bruins were led in shots on goal by Hampus Lindholm, Victor Soderstrom, Charlie McAvoy. They each had 3 shots apiece. No forward had more than 2 shots. And in fact, David Pastrnak had 1 shot. Morgan Geekie had one shot on goal, and that's just not going to get it done. Fraser Minton had a great opportunity on a breakaway early on, but he missed the net, wasn't even credited with a shot on goal. Those are those kind of high danger or scoring chances that you have to take advantage of. So the Oilers actually played a pretty tight defensive game. They were getting some great efforts on the blue line. Darnell Nurse blocking 4 shots. Spencer Stastny, Ty Emberson blocked a couple shots. And Adam Henrique with 4 blocks up front. And their best players stepped up and were their best players on the night. Draisaitl with a point on the Nugent-Hopkins power play goal. McDavid with a couple points. Nuge with a couple points. And that's pretty much all you need from a team like the Oilers. And Quid Hudson with the goal in only 6.5 minutes of ice time, which you just can't allow to happen. Now, the significance of this game, the Bruins had an opportunity to jump into first place in the Atlantic Division. Detroit, having lost their last game, they're stuck on 41 points. The Bruins had 40 going into last night's game, and they still have 40 and kind of missed an opportunity to jump up in the division. When it comes to point percentage, the Bruins are actually now 5th because the Florida Panthers have quietly won 3 games in a row, and they are only 2 points back of the Bruins with 2 games in hand. So that was a significant missed opportunity for the Bruins last night. The Canadiens are technically first with a .588 point percentage. The Red Wings are at .586. The Panthers are now at .576. The Lightning at .574. And the Bruins down at 5th at .571. So the Panthers, they're starting to find their game. And Matthew Tkachuk still yet to return. They're only 2 points back with 2 games in hand and a 3-game winning streak. So the Bruins have to take advantage of these next 3 games, especially those games against Ottawa and Montreal, because Ottawa's won a couple of games in a row. They're only 4 points back of the Bruins with 2 games in hand. The Canadiens are level with the Bruins with 1 game in hand. So the Bruins really have to pick up at least like 4 or 5 of the remaining 6 points in order to maximize this homestand here before the holiday break. If you look at the Eastern Conference as a whole, point percentage-wise, the Bruins have fallen outside of the top 8. They are now like 10th, slightly behind the New Jersey Devils. Thankfully, the Pittsburgh Penguins have fallen back down a bit. The Maple Leafs continue to toil. The Rangers, Sabres have actually won 4 games in a row. They're at .515 right now, and they may be looking to make some moves here sooner than later under new GM Jarmo Kekalainen. So they're a team to keep an eye on for sure. No team under 500 in the Eastern Conference, and the Bruins are now, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 when it comes to goal differential. Capitals, Hurricanes, Lightning, among the best teams in the conference. The Islanders are still up there. All this to say, it's pretty tight in the East right now, and you cannot afford to drop too many points. But look, if you're looking at like saying the Bruins should be selling and trying to get as high of a draft pick as possible, there are quite a few teams below them when it comes to point percentage in the NHL right now. Like, you look over at the Eastern or the Western Conference, you have Saturday's opponent in the Vancouver Canucks currently dead last in the NHL with a .439 point percentage. The Predators, the Flames, the Kraken, Blackhawks, Blues, even the Jets are under 500. And then you have still like 6, 7, 8 teams that are below the Bruins in point percentage. So the Bruins are closer to a playoff spot than they are to the draft lottery or succeeding in the draft lottery. And thanks to the Maple Leaf struggles, there's still a chance they could get a high pick, despite even if they continue to make a push. So again, Saturday's game is crucial. They have to bounce back from that one. They have to learn from last night's loss and just eviscerate the Vancouver Canucks. And that's a game we'll preview here as the podcast continues. NFL Sundays move very fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, shades of 2011 coming up on Saturday night as the Boston Bruins will host the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously, a very different team these days with Quinn Hughes out of the picture. They've got Zev Boyum. They've got Marco Rossi, who I've always been a huge fan of, Liam Holmgren, and, of course, our old friend, Mr. Jake DeBrusk. The Canucks are actually coming off 2 straight wins. They beat the New Jersey Devils and the New York Rangers on this road trip. They are 4-5-1 over their past 10 games overall. And the Bruins at 6-4, again, have a real opportunity to take care of business here against the last place team in the NHL in terms of point percentage. 13-7-3 are the Vancouver Canucks. They are not a great team offensively or defensively, averaging only 2.73 goals per game. They're giving up 3.39 goals per game. That's 27th ranked in both of those categories. Their power play is ranked 14th. Their penalty kill is 29th. And the Bruins have, again, a real opportunity here to beat a lowly team that's still adjusting to a bunch of new faces. Leading scorer for the Canucks over their past 5 games is perennial Bruins trade candidate Connor Garland. He's got 3 assists, 4 points overall. Eetu Räty with 2 goals to lead the Canucks in that category over their past 5 games. David Pastrnak leading the way for the Bruins over their past 5 with 2 goals, 7 assists for 9 points. Goaltending, though, they do have a pretty good one in Thatcher Demko, 7-5 with a .910 save percentage. Pretty sure it'll be Joonas Korpisalo going on Saturday. Bruins did the right thing by giving Swayman his 3rd straight start. Put Korpisalo in against the Canucks on Saturday and then come back with Swayman with 2 starts against the Senators and the Canadiens heading into the holiday break. In terms of leading scores, Elias Pettersson leads the way for the Canucks, although he has not played in a little bit here because of an injury. So take him out of the lineup. He hasn't played since the 5th of December. You take him off, take Quinn Hughes out of the mix. Yeah, they got some good pieces, and actually I credit the Canucks for doing pretty well in that Quinn Hughes trade, getting Boyum, who's got 16 points in 33 games this season, for getting Marco Rossi, who's a very good young center, 13 points in 19 games, even getting Liam Holmgren. He's only got 1 goal in 20 games, but he's got some upside. They did pretty well, and I think they got a first as well. But without Pettersson, without Hughes, this is a pretty poor team right now. Connor Garland leading the way with 19 points followed by Brock Besser, who was a free agent target the Bruins could have had their eyes on. He re-upped. He's only got 9 goals, 17 points in 31 games. Kiefer Sherwood is another guy that the Bruins have their eyes on, and Rachel Krishak from ESPN, who's been on the pod before, floated perhaps Sherwood to the Bruins for a second-round pick. The NHL holiday freeze goes into effect tonight at 11:59 p.m., so maybe we get some moves today. Wouldn't it be fun if Sherwood moves over before Saturday's game? But that, to me, is a bit too rich. They got Evander Kane, Jake DeBrusk, 15 points in 33 games. On the blue line, Philip Roenick leading the way with 17 points. All this to say, the Canucks are not good, and the Bruins have to rebound from this one, get the win, and get some positive momentum heading into 2 huge division games coming up next week before the holiday break against the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens. Like, those are massive games against a team you are right there with in the standings in Montreal and a team that's chasing in the Senators. Those games will happen Sunday. So it's a back-to-back coming up against the Senators and Canucks, actually. So I might jump on and do a quick bonus episode on Sunday just to get you ready for that Senators game. And then they will host the Canadiens on Tuesday. So expect perhaps a little bonus drop on Sunday morning before that Senators game because that's going to be a huge one. Ottawa will also be in action, I hope, on Saturday, so the Bruins aren't getting them super fresh. Let's see what the schedule looks like there. The Senators will be playing Saturday against the, drumroll please, Chicago Blackhawks, 3 p.m. Eastern. So they'll be getting a bit of a break in that they're playing earlier in the afternoon, but they'll still have to travel. So that will be a consideration as well. One of 9 games on Sunday. The Bruins, that's going to be such a huge game. Hopefully, finally, we'll get Linus Ullmark versus Jeremy Swayman. Could be some fireworks there. It's actually the 4th and final meeting between the Bruins and Senators this season. Ottawa's won 7-2, 5-3. The Bruins won 3-2 in overtime. And they got Tim Stützle playing at a very high level. Brady Tkachuk is back. Drake Batherson above a point per game. Dylan Cousins, Claude Giroux. Like, the list goes on. This is a very good team. And they are 4-6 in their last 10, but they've won 2 in a row, including a shutout last night over the Penguins. And they beat Winnipeg the night before. So 2 huge games coming up this weekend for the Bruins. Canucks first on Saturday. They have to win. And I'll try to post some bonus content in between those 2 games to bring you all the very latest. All right, thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Boston Bruins. On Monday's episode, we'll recap the weekend's action. Again, maybe get a little bonus action in there as well. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Boston Bruins so you get all the latest episodes. Follow along on social and on YouTube to get the bonus reels, TikToks, and shorts at Locked NHL Bruins. And if you need a last-minute holiday gift or someone keeps asking what you want, make it easy. Ask for the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of the show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through lockedonbruins.supercast.com. For those of you on video, send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen NHL game night on the Locked On NHL podcast feed. Please do take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. Enjoy your holiday gatherings if you're doing any this weekend. We've got a couple, so it's going to be a busy one. But again, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back Monday with a full new episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network.